And if the world of cryptocurrency is where you see your possibilities, then the Bahamas has a place for you.
Sun, sand, sea, and crypto. It's pegged as the next major deposit in the country's wallet as a new, lucrative global connection prepares to take off.
Today, the arrival and presence of FTX underscores the readiness of the Bahamas to be a home for global leaders in the crypto space. Back in 2019, our central bank launched the Sand Dollar, the world's first digital currency. And just last week, my government launched a policy white paper outlining the future of digital assets in the Bahamas. The Bahamas is not only open and ready for business, but moving to the forefront of this most exciting era of digital asset innovation. For generations, our people have developed a unique expertise as leading professionals in international finance services. As a result, the Bahamas has an extensive capacity of human capital positioned to assist all in the fintech space who look to do business here.
On the heels of the groundbreaking of FTX's $60 million investment in its headquarters and boutique hotel in Western New Providence, the Prime Minister is previewing the empowerment of a generation of Bahamians.
In our policy white paper, you'll also note the commitment of my government to provide the highest in tertiary education to Bahamians who want to be in the fintech and cryptocurrency space. The Bahamas and Bahamians all across our archipelago are ready and willing to partner with you to do business in our great country.
Keeping you in the know. This is OPM Press Now. Prime Minister Philip Davis continues to keep the climate change campaign at the global forefront. Addressing delegates at the Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum in Miami Wednesday, he reinforced the message of the united front to get the region's most urgent message across.
In many ways, a region in crisis. Just as the pandemic restrictions ease, inflation pressures threaten our recovery. Those who live in the Caribbean, the climate crisis is not in the future. It is very much underway. It is now.
The forum comes as the transatlantic hurricane season looms, memories of devastating Hurricane Dorian hovering over its lingering social and economic impact.
More than half of my country's death can be traced directly to the harm caused by hurricanes. Friends across our region, we share the same goals. We need to build economic and climate resilience in our countries. That means energy security and a transition to renewable energy. It means protecting our forests and seas. It means access to more innovative financing mechanisms and debt solutions that recognize that those who contribute the least to carbon emissions are suffering the most from the world's failure to move quickly enough.
Touting proposed legislation to govern the sale of carbon credits and the country's commitment to drawing at least 30% of its energy from renewable sources by 2030, Prime Minister Davis left delegates with this admonition.
Let's keep reminding the world that time is up and promises are not the same as action. Let's keep pushing for more financing for renewables and on that terms.
Keeping you in the know, this is OPM Press Now.
pleasant good morning, media colleagues and those joining us via the stream. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. Today, we have another exciting briefing for you, giving you the information that you need to do your jobs so well. Without further ado, I will welcome Press Secretary Clint Watson to introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Jillian. Good morning. Davis administration and where we are, what's happening this week. Pretty quiet week, would you say? But nonetheless, we have a number of things we want to pass on to you today. Our focus first in the beginning of this press conference is to talk about some environmental matters and concerns, particularly regarding land, Crown land. And the Minister of Environment is here to talk to us about that. The Honorable Vaughn Miller to talk to us about some of the concerns, where we are with that. He'll also be here with his technical officer, Daniel Hannock, who's the acting director of forestry, to give you an update on where we are since they were last here and they talked to us. And then we'll talk about the Crown land issue and then, of course, some announcements from Prime Minister. Our food vendors are here as well. And so an exciting press conference will wait you. So I'm going to begin now with the Minister responsible for the environment, the Honorable Vaughn Miller, to address the issue with Crown land and some of the concerns that have arisen recently in the media. Minister Miller.
Good morning to those of you in the media. Good morning to those in, I guess, television, radio land. Good morning. As the press secretary said, of course, as Minister of Environment, responsible for the forest. Forestry is under part of our remit, and also the Department of Planning and Protection, Department of Environmental Planning and Protection. And Ms. Danielle Hannock is here. She's the acting director of forestry. She's going to come and share with you, because that's principally where we're involved in terms of the deforestation and the Pine Yard on Carmichael Road. She'll speak to you, and then I'll come after that with some brief remarks. Ms. Danielle Hannock.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Bahamas. Thank you for the opportunity to bring you an update about what is happening in the Carmichael Road forest area. So this it's a multi-phased approach, but in essence what is happening, you have the clearing of protected trees. The pine tree is a protected tree, as well as silvertop palm and a few other trees that are found in this area. So where forestry is concerned, currently, underneath our Forestry Act, we have a protected tree order, and a permit is required for that, for the harvesting or clearing of such. So there's that process, and so we recognize that since we were alerted in February 25th, since it became viral, this situation of clearing of land. Before that, we have been monitoring, and we have done reports previously, especially in 2021, where we were recognizing that there was illegal clearing happening, as well as other activities. For example, those in the Carmichael Road and Cowpenny Road area are very familiar with charcoal operations. And so we have been reporting this over the process with the ministry, as well as other entities as well. So it all has basically come to light, or significant pressures are constant in the areas of clearing of land. What we can estimate now in this area, so from the Carmichael Road subdivision, heading the new subdivision that's proposed by government, heading west to the Coral Harbor Road roundabout, we have an estimated of 500 acres that have been cleared that we could determine from last year, July, so July 2021 to now. We are working with Department of Lands and Surveys to have an accurate number of how much acreage has been cleared in this area. The area is Crown land. It has always been designated as forest because the definition of a forest is that you have 0.5 hectares or larger of the same ecosystem, and this is the pine forest ecosystem. So the pine forest, Pinus caribea bahamensis, is endemic to the Bahamas. It's also found in Turks and Caicos. It's found in our archipelago. And these are the largest pine yards that you could find in this hemisphere. So it's very precious in terms of also it's our source of water. Our water tables are also located in these areas. And so in terms of national importance and security, your freshwater resources, is a priority of any government. And so these areas have always been determined that these are the reserves for such. Since then, we have periodically done drive-throughs to determine the extent of the damages. We discovered that there is an entire subdivision road network within these areas. There are various levels of persons putting down stakes, to putting up no trespassing signs, to putting foundations, and fully developed homes with roofs and windows and air conditions and everything exist in this area. So we recognize that in terms of the jurisdiction of the forestry unit, we can say that there were forests here a year ago. They're not forests here anymore. We could determine the estimate of how many trees were harvested that are protected based on our studies. And based on our act, we could then say that the fine is up to, according to our act, is up to $25,000, the penalty, or 2 years imprisonment or more. So we are working with the Attorney General's office, also the Department of Public Prosecutions, to bring this to light so that the responsible parties could be held accountable. And the loss is, this will take decades to recover. What has been lost in less than a few months will take at least 30 to 40 years to recover to its full functioning capabilities. Many people say, I can't eat a pine tree. No, but you need one to breathe. You need one to have fresh water. If you use a public water system, public well, or you have your own private well, that is all regenerated from these areas. As well as in terms of soil erosion, air quality, meaning the increase of dust, the increase of heat, temperatures. They are subtle, and they may show up in other health ways, but in terms of security for residents in that area, in terms of air quality security, water quality security, these are all essential. So in terms of forestry, is working with Department of Lands and Surveys, working with Department of Physical Planning. Also, we're working with Department of Environmental Planning and Protection and the Department of Environmental Health Services to address all these infractions that we see happening in the forest. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Just to speak to the issue of Crown lands. Firstly, Crown land is not a part of the Ministry of the Environment. But I'd like to speak to the issue in terms of what is happening. I understand. I saw this day coming. I've heard conversations in the past. I've been a part of conversations. Persons were upset. Persons were very concerned because the perception was that Haitians or Haitian Bahamians or persons of Haitian descent were allowed to live on Crown land without permission. So if they're allowed to do it in my country, then as a Bahamian, I must be able to do the same thing. I've been in conversations like that. I've entertained thoughts of acting in similar manners. I decided not to. It was not in my best interest. It was not in the best interest of our country. And I decided not to. That the best way to do it was to abide by the process. Personally, for our church, we've applied 2 or 3 times. We were denied, and then we were offered in another area, which we were not interested in. And so I understand the frustrations of Bahamians who have applied for Crown land and have been denied, or have never been answered or responded to. So I fully understand their frustrations. What I've found out since, that what I thought were persons just building on Crown land without permission was really, in many instances, many instances, Bahamians who have Crown land grants and are leasing to persons. Obviously, that's a violation of the grant. That's a violation of the conditions of the grant. And this problem is a vexing one. It's successive administrations. Bahamians were crying out, deal with this issue, deal with this issue, deal with this issue. And now that we are in office, it's now our problem. And we must deal with it. They've elected us. We're in position, we're the government, and we have to deal with it. And so the way forward is obviously the persons, in terms of speaking to the issues of deforestation in the Carmichael area, they're Bahamians. And from what I've been hearing, for the most part, they're Bahamians who are frustrated and who felt the same way I felt, but they're doing what I opted not to do. I made a fundamental decision not to take that route. But they obviously have opted to take that route. And I wish to encourage them to cease, to desist. I understand your frustration. I understand some instances your pain. But I know that's not the right route to take. And I advise you to, let's go with the process, and let's see if the process will work. Maybe it'll work for them. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for us. We're still waiting. It didn't work for us. And so I understand the frustration. But there are rules, there are regulations, there are guidelines that we live by. And I opted to operate within the guidelines of the law. And I would advise them to do likewise. But I wish to repeat, I understand the frustration. The frustrations are real, legitimate, genuine. I fully understand it. But I cannot condone the breaking of the laws. I cannot condone the illegal occupation. I again understand the frustrations. But that's where we part ways.
Questions?
Mr. Miller, the previous administration passed some bills that expanded the government's powers as far as being able to apply penalties and fines for environmental infractions. For instance, cruise lines who dump. There's always been this concern that sometimes we have these laws on the books, but we don't have the manpower to enforce it. So are you able to speak to the adequacy of the manpower in the Ministry of Environment to enforce the laws that were passed under the previous administration?
I'd like to take this opportunity to invite persons who would have studied in the area of the environment, environmental sciences, and whatever. We do need persons. We need more employees in those areas. I've said that several weeks ago, and I'd like to repeat that and invite Bahamians, please. Some have responded, and we're asking others to please respond. We need additional persons in the forestry unit and the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection. To answer your question, there's a concern, generally speaking, that in terms of the laws are in place, but the enforcement of those laws, a lot of persons question. And in our case, we do our best, okay? And we, as it relates to forestry, and I've signed up to be able to speak to it even more, in terms of what is happening presently, when it comes to evidence, of course, persons aren't going to come forth and say, yes, we pushed down some trees, yes, we cleared the land, it's us. And so in terms of, in this instance, compiling the evidence and submitting that, it's very challenging in this case. But whenever we have it, we do pursue it.
Okay, so it's safe to say we, at the moment, don't have enough people to really enforce these laws.
Throughout the country, we would like to? No, we're an archipelago, approximately 100,000 square miles. We in the process of having a presence at beginning on the major family of islands, in Eleuthera, Andros, Abaco, Grand Bahama, in terms of the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection and our forestry unit, to have a presence in those islands, and so that everything wouldn't be so Nassau-centric.
Do you have an estimate of how much more employees you all could ideally
I'll let
attract?
Ms. Annick respond in terms of forestry, but my understanding from the director in Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, at least 10 to 15 immediately.
Good morning. Thank you for your question. And yes, we do need more staff. We are currently in the hiring process, so I do support Minister's plea to, if there are, especially persons from the SIS program at UB, this is Small Island Sustainability Program, that we are looking for officers, and we're looking to establish our offices in Grand Bahama, Eleuthera, Andros, and Abaco initially. Also, we'll be establishing our office in Crooked Island in June. So we'll be doing that, and to increase our presence. Also, the Bahamian public is very engaging. WhatsApp is very informative. So even persons who contact us at the office, they'll send a GPS location, or they'll send us a video of something happening filling in mangroves. And once we have capabilities, especially in New Providence, we go out and research. Even our NGOs in the Family Islands, for example, Friends of the Environment, they advise us of some filling in a mangrove in South Abaco. So we're working with persons to say how to address that. So it is not just us having staff, but also building partnerships or relationships with the public, with NGOs, with the communities. And we find as more communities are saying, hey, we can actually contact and we get a response, and they see us out there, we've actually improved in getting interaction or feedback from our public. So it's not just, so it's a phased approach, but we definitely are hiring, budget providing. But so for example, last year we had slated to put forth 20 new officers. We got approval to hire 2. So we're hoping this year we're putting again the 20, and hopefully we could get more. So thank you.
Minister Miller, I hear the empathy in your voice when you talk about the deforestation and the crown land. But like you also indicated, it's against the law. So at this point right now, what is the position of the ministry? I mean, what's going to happen? What's going to take place? We know, Ms. Hanekom said that what happened in the deforestation, the damage done in months will take years to.
Yes.
What's the update? What's going to happen? Will people be charged as more deforestation takes place? Will people be charged?
As I said earlier, when we have the evidence, and we give the evidence to the relevant authorities, and then they'll be in a position to then act on that. But as it is presently, in terms of us having the evidence, in terms of who the persons were that did this or contributed to it, we do not have that evidence. And so that's why we're advising persons to cease, to desist. And of course, this is a multi-ministry agency approach. It's not just us in the environment. As I said, in terms of the environment, in terms of pushing down trees, in terms of clearing the land without permission, that's basically as far as it goes with us. In terms of occupying the Crown land, whatever they're doing, the Crown land, Department of Lands and Surveys, also with the police force, the Ministry of Works and Physical Planning, they're a part of it, and I'm not sure if I'm leaving any other ministry out, but so it's a multi-ministry approach.
From what I understand, the clearing is done early morning. Who's monitoring? Police force, defense force? Who's monitoring? I understand the clearing is being done early morning.
They are patrolling. The police force, defense force are patrolling, of course, and they patrol at intervals. And in terms of us as a ministry, our officers, if we get calls, we respond to the calls. And if persons are there, the most they can do is serve the cease and desist notice, warnings. And they're usually accompanied by a police officer to do that. But outside of that, that's as far as we go in terms of the Ministry of the Environment, what forestry is empowered to do by the legislation and the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection.
Minister, you mentioned that, well, it was mentioned that you discovered homes with roofs and air conditioning in protected forest area. I just want to get that correct.
So yes, the first part, yes, we discovered full homes in this area. Now, the area is considered forest on the maps, like on Crown Land maps. These areas were always considered forest and for the well fields, for example. Now, in terms of their official legal designation, they're not legally designated forests or forest reserves or conservation forests. They're just currently designated as Crown lands. So that is the gray area in the acts. So our Forestry Act is pertaining to activities that happen within the National Forest Estate. We have proposed areas, and these are sections of Crown land that were designated as forests. And this is from the resource assessment that was done in the 1970s that's proposed as areas that should be similar, like as agricultural lands, what they should be designated as. But in terms of legal designation or legal protection, that is still pending.
Were those homes, from what you uncovered, were they legally structured?
From what we could tell.
In terms of work permits and that sort of thing?
Right, so in terms of speaking with my counterparts at all of our agencies, we have no permits for any activities. So that means any illegal clearing that happened, any structures that were built in these areas, there are no official permits for any of that.
So what happens in this case?
So what happens in this case, like I said, we just spoke with a task force has been formed with the AG's office and Department of Public Prosecutions, DPP. And so we are assisting them in gathering evidence for them, and then we were advised that as forestry, we can make a complaint to the police force, who could then officially now do an investigation in these areas. The challenge will be having exact dates and times of when these were cleared or correct names. So when we did our drive-through, very rarely did persons give us their names. All they said was, oh, speak to this person, this is how I ended up here. And so that is a process. We're hoping that this could reach the Bahamian public, and those who are involved could come forward and assist the process, because that would be, because this is our plea to the public, to understand what they're doing, what is happening in this area is wrong. We understand that some persons have purchased land, or quote unquote, or so they feel like they have a right to these areas. And we're advising them as technical officers in our departments, we do not see that. So so that's why it's coming before the AG's office and before the Department of Public Prosecutions, because it's very much intertwined. So it's go on.
Been served with cease and desist or eviction notices?
They have. Some have.
Can you say how many?
I can't speak to that. That's another agency. But I know that they have, and I know that we've been, our agencies have been given authorization to advance with posting up signs on advisement from the AG's office to say that this is Crown land and that the activities are illegal on it. And just to say public advisement, that's the first process in our step to advise the public on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all again. I should like to just reiterate to the persons occupying the land. As I've said earlier, I understand the frustration. I understand the frustration. However, cannot condone and cannot support the illegal, unlawful occupation. There's a process in place, and we ask you to abide by that process. So please cease, please desist. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister. And I'm going to ask Minister just hang on, because I think there's in our general question and answer, there may be another question on environment matters, so I'm not going to stay along for that. But another part of this equation that we want to bring to your awareness is, of course, as we've been hearing, Crown Land. And so we've asked a land manager from the Department of Lands and Survey, who deals with Crown Land, Mark Darville, to come and address us on really how the process of Crown Land should work, and to take your questions you may have regarding Crown Land versus for what's been designated as wetlands, all of that stuff. So we're going to invite Mr. Mark Darville to come and speak to us about the process, and then, of course, take your questions regarding Crown Land. Mr. Darville.
Good morning. All right, the situation with Crown Land works like this. Applicants come in, they apply, whether it's for residential or commercial ventures. Now, what I realized with Crown Land, our system is pretty old. And the population-wise, like back from the 60s, 50s, and 60s, it was working pretty smooth back then because the population growth wasn't as it is now, you know? So we dealing with a system that was in place from the 50s and 60s, still trying to work with that now in 2022, you know? That's why we're having all these issues with people aggressing land and trying to take land over. For instance, on the Outer Islands, there should be an assigned Crown Land manager on every major island. You can't operate and control land by sitting here in the capital. You see what I'm saying? People are gonna come into Lands and Survey and they're gonna get maps that they're not up to date. They're gonna look at some maps from the 50s and 60s, and they're going to see vacant Crown Land on it. But these lands have already been issued to grantees. And there is a sense of innocence in it from them being ignorant to the fact of what's happening today. So our whole system needs to be revamped technology-wise. It needs to be revamped. We can't be working with a system from the 60s and 50s to handle the situations of 2022. I can't even give you no sensible answer what questions you can bring to me because you're working with a prehistoric system what needs to be revamped. Now you're waiting on questions anyway.
Listening to you, you sound quite frustrated with the system. What is your proposal in terms of updating an antiquated system that's really frustrating the whole?
Okay, well, first of all, with applications, we still dealing with paper applications. We need to have digital stuff online where people can just fill in online, and they can have like an automated response that give them an acknowledgement letter. And they would be able to have some kind of tailor the tape what's happening with the application process, you know? But when you bring in paper and you only have like 4 people in the registry and you're having a bulk load of these applications come in, everyone wants to be satisfied or accommodated according to land. We don't have the amount of people to deal with that. It needs to be digitized, and we need more manpower on the Outer Islands to watch land Even if they have to work with the administrators over there, that'll help a lot. Someone needs to be stationed on every major island to deal with situations. They just can't run into the lands and survey. They just can't catch a plane, come on a boat, and say, hey, they come to deal with the situation. That ain't gonna work.
How many persons would you say for each island needs to be employed?
For each island, you can need at least 3 people. You can need like a line manager, and you can need like 2 assistants to be with them, to go there, travel around the land and work with them, and work with the administrator over there.
The pending applications, how many would you say there are right now?
Man, they're in the thousands, man, they're in the hundreds and thousands.
So as it stands right now, I don't even need to apply. I could just go.
No,
down.
I think they should have done a cutoff, just cut off for a bit, to try accommodate people at least who never had Crown land before. Because, you know, we have some people that get land repeatedly. And you should deal with people who had never had Crown land before, be it residential or commercial.
But you wouldn't really know right now because of the antiquated system.
Correct.
Okay, so as it stands right now, I might as well just, well, I don't even have to hop on a plane to go to Family Island. I can just go right here somewhere and just seize a piece of Crown land, and by the time as y'all get to me, I'll be straight, right?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, we do regularizations because that been happening before this hit the ceiling, you know. That been happening for years, from like in the 80s and stuff. People been occupying land, they build homes and stuff like that, but they never had no ownership of it. So a lot of people need to be regulated. And I think that's what was happening with the situation would just take toll the other day. I think they just wanted to be on the land, occupy the land for a period of time, and then be regulated, you know? And then you have some people will become on the scene and capitalize with the situation and start selling land and doing all kinds of different stuff. As a matter of fact, this is not just happening in Nassau, this is happening on other islands.
Okay, so those persons who are really selling as well to unsuspecting persons, should they not face the
But I mean, if they could catch him, why not? They know very well what they're doing. You could catch him, you just got to deal, the law will have to deal with them. But to the victim, you have to have a different kind of sense towards them. They're being had, so you got to try and work with them from a hard way.
And in this case, you mean regularized?
Yes, ma'am.
But how many persons would you say as it stands right now?
Well, I don't have an overall chart of the pool, so I can't say, but it's a lot on every island. On every island. People have homes, they run it off generators and stuff. And we do regularizations. We do that. Yes.
Any other questions? Good. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
So clearly you understand the challenge the Lands and Surveys is facing. And again, it's another issue that the Davis administration has to give considerable effort to addressing. And of course, the parliamentary secretary here in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Leon Lundy, is tasked on trying to find a more efficient way to bring some relief to the backlog. Because there's so many people who've been waiting. And you know, it's not justified. People have been waiting literally years on responses, but I'm talking about an answer. I'm talking about people haven't even gotten responses for years. And so this has to come to an end. The Bahamian people ought to be treated better than this. The Bahamian people are entitled to have access to Crown land. It is a part of what makes you proud to be Bahamian. And this administration will ensure that there's more efficiency when it comes to lands and survey, because we believe that the Bahamian people ought to be dealt with in a professional, a more dignified manner. And that is something that the parliamentary secretary is working on to ensure a more robust process, to ensure that the department is better staffed and there is better control. And this is why we ask Bahamians, near and wide, to please allow the administration to put in better practices and procedures without trying to take matters into your own hands. When you do that, you confuse the system for so many other Bahamians to come who want to have access to land. So we ask you to please allow the system to work, allow the Davis administration to be able to put in these efficiencies so that you can get responses without breaking the law. I think the minister said it as well earlier. There could be easily other ways to go and try and take matters into your hands. But we prefer our Bahamian people to be upstanding citizens and to allow the law to be respected and abided by in this country. And we are promising that there will be greater efficiency. Might not be able to solve it all in 4.5 to 5 years. Might not be able to all of a sudden give you this wonderful electronic system. But what we can promise that you will get is better efficiency. It's been missing for years, and there's considerable focus and attention that's being given to lands to ensure that these matters can be dealt with in a more respectable manner. I can't see them on the calls that have come into the office of the Prime Minister, people checking on Crown land, people checking on their applications, and rightfully no Bahamian should have to go through this cycle of constantly checking without hearing a response. And so I think what we do want to tell the Bahamian people is we are working to improve this because we're not satisfied with the level of efficiency that's presently being provided. And there is work in progress to correct that. All right, I want to get on to some announcements from Prime Minister and then take the rest of your questions today. Prime Minister is going to be he's going to be working throughout the weekend while many of us will be enjoying a weekend off. Prime Minister is going to be working. He leaves the country this evening to attend a number of engagements over the weekend. The first will be a speaking engagement at the commencement exercises at Middle Tennessee State. He will deliver a commencement address at Middle Tennessee State University set for Saturday. The appearance is significant to the diaspora as a Bahamian. Dr. Sidney McPhee serves as president. He is a Bahamian. Dr. McPhee also serves as consultant to the University of the Bahamas as the institution seeks accreditation from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. No doubt there will be further interaction and discussion on how the Bahamas can benefit from the partnership. So twofold, there's going to be a significant partnership that we're going to talk about following this trip with international agencies. And also, as you know, the University of the Bahamas is aggressively seeking accreditation, which many people do not know. The university did not have accreditation. And so it's seeking accreditation as a university from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. And so this advancement by Prime Minister speaking at the commencement address is going to help that significantly, as well as some other initiatives that will be coming out of that. The Prime Minister will then head on to New York, where Bahamian will be an art exhibit. And this is important to our Bahamian artist, Tavares Strawn. Strawn is an internationally acclaimed conceptual artist whose contemporary multimedia installations investigate science, technology, mythology, history, and exploration. This latest exhibit is entitled The Awakening, reflecting on activist Marcus Garvey. It will be staged at the Marion Goodman Gallery in New York. You can expect a major announcement pertaining to the orange economy to also come from that exchange. So that's going to be pretty exciting. Then from there, Prime Minister will head to London, where he will participate in a roundtable discussion with the Commonwealth. And is being put on by the Commonwealth Journal of International Affairs. This meeting is a precursor in some respects to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which will be held and hosted by Rwanda in June. The Prime Minister's invitation stems from the advocacy he has showcased on behalf of the Bahamas and the region on critical climate change concerns. And he's been invited because of the forefront position he's taking on climate change, not only for the Bahamas, but the region. He's been invited to speak on that behalf as well. And then he'll head back to the capital by mid next week. So a busy weekend for the Prime Minister as he continues his successful international presence and speeches and speaking opportunities to represent our country. This week, interesting courtesy call for the Prime Minister. Members of the St. John's College class of 1968, classmates of Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Davis, paid a courtesy call this week at the office of the Prime Minister. Members of the class congratulated the Prime Minister on his ascension to the office and commended him on moving the Bahamas to the forefront of the international scene. The group also discussed matters of national importance, including digital assets, climate change, and carbon credits, also taking time to reminisce on their school days back at St. John's College with the Prime Minister. And so we're excited the Prime Minister was able to see some of his former classmates and engage and talk to them. Okay, let's get into some questions and answers this morning. Let's begin with the Tribune, Rashad Roll. Hi, Rashad.
Thanks, Clint. So, as you know, we had 2 more police-involved killings last week. Mm-hmm. The Prime Minister told us in December that this was an issue that concerned him, the fact that we hadn't had an inquest into police-involved killings since the pandemic began. William Monroe recently said that the issue is that the Department of Public Prosecution hasn't appointed somebody to marshal the cases. And the Commissioner of Police said this week that he's not happy at the pace with which this is going. So, particularly given that this is something that the Prime Minister has publicly said is unacceptable to him, why is this still an issue?
As you can imagine, the process has begun to be able to bring some relief. When we spoke about this, it was the end of last year. We're now almost at midpoint, not quite at midpoint in this year. Process has been being able to identify the critical personnel. There are significant shortages, as you can imagine, in the legal system. And being able to identify the people who will be able to do these investigations or moving critical staff to one area obviously prohibits another area, and then trying to find the right people. That's been the challenge. But Minister of State Jomo Campbell for Legal Affairs has been working in this particular area to ensure that his area is staffed out. We expect to hear back from him. I spoke to him early this morning regarding it, and so we expect to hear back to him real soon on where they are with being able to staff these offices to ensure that we see some efficiency. And so, like I tell people, I know it seems like the administration has been in office a lifetime. It hasn't. Under normal circumstances, elections would have been due sometime around this weekend, May 10th. And then the new administration would have begun. So what you find happening is the Davis administration has been forced to walk very quickly and taking office. And there are a number of emergencies that have come up that have been addressed with. That's going to hopefully be addressed. And I think you'll hear in the upcoming budget provisions have been made to ensure that is a tool that we're using to fight crime and being able to bring those up. So look forward to seeing some solutions on that in the upcoming budget.
Okay, so if I could just quickly follow up. It's usually, the technical people that we call them who, for instance, marshal cases, so who do the work. So in terms of there being a lack of staff, what changed from before the pandemic to now that causes there to not be enough people to do the job?
A lot, and I think what we don't understand enough of is if you look within the public service, there is a need for so many critically trained people in various areas. And you find people saying, "Oh, well, I can't get a job in government." There can be a need, the fact that there are jobs available. Yes, but these are specifically trained jobs that we generally don't have a lot of Bahamians applying for because of the skill that's required for them. These are not general service workers where somebody else gets need a job, put me in this area. These jobs require specified training. They require a certain skill, and we don't have a lot of people who possess the qualifications for a lot of these jobs. If you notice, you look in columns, if you look in papers every day, you see a lot of jobs being posted, but they require certain skills. And you're wondering, well, why are these vacancies here? And people are saying they need jobs. Well, because a lot of people who are home are necessarily qualified for these jobs. So it's trying to find the right people who instead of just putting somebody in the system and it doesn't alleviate the bottleneck because they don't know what they're doing, or they don't have the skills to deal with it. It's trying to find the right people who could advance the public service so that we no longer have the backlog, we no longer have the inefficiencies, rather than just putting anybody in a job and say, do the job. And then you have inefficiencies because somebody's not qualified to do the work. It's trying to find the right people. No longer just putting anybody in the public service, but treating the public service as it should be treated, as a skilled labor force of professionals. And when we are able to fill the public service positions with skilled laborers, we no longer have to dispel a myth of the public service that it is lazy, that it is lackadaisical, that it is slow moving, because you now have professionals working in the industry. And that's what the Davis administration is trying to do, put qualified people. Now, that's offensive to some people. Why? Because people believe if your administration is in office, just give me a job. And then we end up having what? Inefficiencies in the public service because we gave a job to somebody because of politics rather than qualifications. Mr. Davis is very adamant about ensuring that as he fills positions throughout the public service, people are qualified so we remove bottleneck and inefficiency from the public service. And so it takes a while to try and find that. I can tell you, being in the public service, you want things to happen fast. But you're dealing with a creature that moves very slowly, and it takes a lot of work to try and change processes to cause things to move faster. But you have a creature that's been around for decades that you now have to try and bit by bit change to a position of becoming efficient and effective, and that's a fight. But it's one that the Davis administration is up to, and you will see the change. You will see the efficiencies. Let's go to Chester Robots, Nassau Guardian. Hi, Chester.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to find out, given that you were talking about environment, where the government is with the renewals of challenger energy groups' licenses. I know we understand where Mr. Davis stands on oil drilling itself, but just we haven't heard about the licenses and the renewals in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't heard about it either. I was hoping the minister would have still been here and not left, so he could address that because it's his ministry. But we'll find out for you and get back to you on it. Because I do know that they have addressed some matters, but I do know there's also not some movement on some matters. But we'll get that for you. Thank you, Chester. Carla Zeradas, hi.
Initially, I'd asked this question before when the Prime Minister was here, but more and more, I see people on the street in need of help. This morning I was on my way to work, and there was a gentleman bathing at the pump, the public pump. We talk and we talk and we talk. What exactly is being done to help these people?
I'm glad you asked. Mental illness is a serious concern in this country. It is not being addressed at the level it should be addressed at. I am pleased to say that it is something that Prime Minister Davis has expressed concern about. Provisions are being made in the upcoming budget to address mental health on a national level, and there should be some new initiatives you will hear coming out in joint effort with Ministry of Social Services as an urban renewal, as well as the Ministry of Health. There are dialogues going on right now as to a national effort to deal with mental health. Meetings have already begun, and you'll see in the upcoming budget provisions placed on the books to be able to assist people with mental health.
That's in the long term.
That's an immediate and long-term. Budget is this end of this month. The communication will be made at the end of this month in a matter of weeks, and the debate and the new budget comes into play in July. So it'll be immediate as well as be long-term. Yes.
Yeah, getting back to that mental health issue, right? Not all mentally challenged people are passive. You get some violent of them.
Correct.
As a matter of fact,
Correct.
I have one of them living on the side of me. Right?
Correct.
And the family members cannot see this unless it's actually aggression against them.
Mm-hmm.
But when aggression be against the neighbors and other things, I mean, when you call police on matters like this, when they hear the person is like mentally challenged, like they don't want to deal with it, do you think you all have to create an entity that will like work with Sandilands or one of those places?
Yes.
Call them, bring up, and let them come out there and try and just deal with these people instead of the police officers?
It's being addressed. I've heard people talk about that too,
Right.
and there are programs that are going to be rolling out talking about being a neighbor to people who you may suspect may have challenges, and so we look to see exactly what program will be implemented to address that. Right. Yeah. Okay. Our news, Bertha McDermott. Hi, BJ.
Good morning. Earlier this week, there was an article speaking to the public disclosure, and apparently some MPs were unaware of the deadline. Are you able to provide a little details as to how many MPs did not meet this deadline, and what's going to happen? Are any actions going to be taken? Because I know there is a 30-day extension, and from what I understand, it went beyond that extension that is allowed in the law.
The deadline was March 1st. Some persons have asked for extensions, we understand. As to how many people did not meet disclosure, we don't know. I did make efforts to speak with the Disclosure Commission, and they were not able to provide the information for me readily, because I wanted to be able to give you numbers as well. We've asked. We've not been given numbers as to how many, but we know there exist people out there. Now, whether they all are aware that you have to disclose. It was a part of training for new parliamentarians. Now, what may have happened, I suspect, in this matter is the deadline passed, or people being so consumed with whatever they were doing, obviously didn't make the deadline or forgot the deadline was there. And now, and trust me, I can tell you, since this has made headlines, many of them have rushed to get it done. So I think in many cases it was just simple oversight to get it done. It's the first one since taking office, and I think people just missed a deadline because they didn't know it was March 1st, or they didn't remember, they were caught up. Nonetheless, they all have been asked to get it done, and they know the importance of doing that, and they're getting it done. But I suspect it was just simple oversight on the deadline had arrived. There was a 30-day extension. So we don't, I've asked if there's another deadline, haven't been given one. All I know is that all persons who are outstanding were told to contact the commission and to arrange when they will have the information available to them. And that's been done.
Considering that there was an extension, the 30-day extension, and that has passed, they have been given a grace period, an additional extension to get there.
I don't know that. Only the commission chairman can answer that. It's an independent commission. We don't get involved in that. But I do know that those who were outstanding, Prime Minister said to everyone who's outstanding to make sure that you honor it and get it done. Now, as to whether there are consequences or what will happen to the commission, you probably need to talk to the commission chairman who volunteered the information to the media. You probably can speak with him regarding that. It's an independent commission, so we won't know what penalties will fall if there are any.
So I also wanted to ask the minister, but he left, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this.
Most likely not, but go ahead. Let's try.
Challenger Energy, similar to what you sort of asked, I know under the former administration, the minister said that there were some outstanding fees owed to the government. Are you able to say if those fees were paid?
I can't. I can get the information for you, though. Be happy to.
Last question. I think a few weeks ago, Whitney Hasty would have resigned from BPL. Any update as to what's happening? Who now is filling in that position, considering he's not there? When can we see a replacement? Or, well, who is, I guess, running
the board? The board is meeting today. They expect to make an announcement within a week. Okay. Thank you. Royson, Eyewitnesses Online.
I have a question regarding the Prime Minister's conclave, the crime conclave in late March. I think we were expecting some immediate announcements following that. And we have heard from the Acting Commissioner of Police about strategies and efforts in certain operations, saturation patrols. But we're also expecting there some long-term strategies from multi-agencies from the Prime Minister on that. Have there been any further developments as to some of those long-term strategies on the crime front that you could possibly speak to and allude to based on what's been discussed as a result of this ongoing gang warfare?
Right. The long-term strategies I can't speak to. I don't want to speak to. Prime Minister is going to address a number of those during the budget debate, and you will hear the Minister of National Security go in detail with the long-term plan. So I don't want to preempt that. They are meeting on the long-term strategies and coming up with them, and I guess sorting out how they're going to roll those out. But you will hear those in the upcoming budget.
Have you heard that these are going to require additional budgetary requirements?
I don't know. I know that the cabinet is meeting now to finalize budgetary allocations, and so we'll know once they would have met whether it will require additional funding, and you'll obviously see it in the line items when they announce it. But cabinet is meeting to discuss financing for the upcoming budget. Okay.
As a housekeeping matter, I believe either last week or the week before you said we might have the royal visit before the next OPM presser. Are you able to present that to us at this time?
I'm glad you asked to give you an update. Royce and I was this close to getting it. But of course, public service protocols require that they submit the report to the Secretary of the Cabinet, who sends it to the Prime Minister, who will then, I guess, decide or not to release it. And that's the process. I'm told that they were about to wrap it up and they had more invoices that came in that they were trying to conclude. And once that's done, it'll be sent to the relevant authorities and then hopefully filtered down to us. So I'm working to get it for you, but obviously observing the protocols of the public service.
Is it at this stage still being finalized, or can we say the report is now finalized?
It's still being finalized. I asked whether they had a figure. They didn't, because they were still trying to settle final invoices, I'm told. Is Austin here from JCN? No, I didn't see him. Shelley Global?
Yes, good morning. Well, actually, I had a question put to Minister of Environment and Health. But my other concern is, we are seeing a gradual increase in child sex cases again. And I want to know, there was a recent incident involving an alleged Syrian rapist who was released in the community. Persons are calling for an amendment to that act because it says that persons convicted prior to 2017 are not on the sex offenders registry. And this obviously applies to quite a number of persons coming out of prison, and we just saw just the other day another prisoner gunned down on a work release program. The person's asking for amendments. Are there any considerations for amendments to the sex offenders registry?
It has been discussed. There are a number of concerns that people have voiced that they would like to see, or proposals for amendments. Attorney General office, as you can imagine, is swamped, right? And these are this is one of the things that's been talked about and finalized. As to whether or not there are new amendments that are going to come, I don't know. We'll make that inquiry for you and find out from the Attorney General or the Minister of State for Legal Affairs as to whether there are new amendments to it. This administration, though, is very keen on ensuring that persons who are responsible for crimes against children and women are dealt with. That is a known fact. The Prime Minister has said it himself. But as to whether new legislations, whether the need for legislations, we'll follow up on that and get back to you on that, Shelley.
You're also under age of consent. What's the status of that?
I have no update from the Attorney General on that. Whenever he makes updates, he always passes them on to me. I have nothing yet on that. Okay. Any other questions before we close this section up? Yes. Oh, I forgot. Did I forget you, Leah? I'm sorry. Yes, Leah from Eyewitness News. Congratulations, Leah.
Thank you. I wanted to piggyback on what you were saying about mental health and ask if you had any update on the reform bill. I know they were reforming the Mental Health Act.
Nothing yet. They're still consulting and revisiting the bill and reviewing it, trying to ensure that it's something substantive. We've had laws on the books before that just have no teeth. We want to make sure that these new bills have teeth to it before they go to Parliament. And so they're meeting. There's a lot of meeting going on. You may hear me say that a lot, but truly people are working to try and ensure that they bring all of these things to Parliament and they're airtight. So they're still work in progress.
What about that speed of legislation? Is there any progress being made in that regard?
It is. The Attorney General's office is consulting, talking with Department of Social Services. They're meeting on it. And once the bill is ready, it's going to be brought before Parliament. You're going to see after the budget, and when Parliament is done with budget and their break, there are going to be a lot of legislation that you see come before Parliament as we try to put in place better practices so our people can live in a better environment. You're going to see a lot of these legislation that affect people. You're going to see a lot of people legislation before Parliament. Hi.
Sylvia Williams, JCN News.
Oh, welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you. But just going back to what the minister presented with regards to deforestation and dealing with the fact that this is going to be a multi-ministry effort. Keeping in mind that it's the police, lands and survey, environment, who do you think in terms of ministry would actually spearhead such a cooperation, or will a task force be implemented that's independent? What do you foresee for that?
You're very correct. A task force is being put together. I saw a proposal across my desk this week from a task force that's being put, a joint task force involving all of those particular agencies that's being put together to address this matter. Based on where I saw the information come, it looks like it's coming out of national security, but a task force involving all those relevant agencies is being put together, and a plan is being proposed as to how they're going to aggressively address that. And I think once it's finalized, we'll be able to not release the details because obviously it'll be a joint operation, and in some instances they can't release the plan, but you will be aware of its execution.
Okay, and with regards to items such as CCTV and police drones, do you think that items like that may be incorporated in keeping these type of areas somehow under surveillance?
That's always the question. And here's what I think is important. Once we arrest the root of the problem, I think the problem will either fall away or you'll be able to see it decrease significantly. The root of the problem here is you have people who are on these lands, And the reason why they're there isn't because they just want to aggressively say, I took a piece of land. They literally are paying rent, or they've bought these lands from other Bahamians who've been granted them for crown land. And you know when you grant a crown land, there should be some agricultural use or development, and that's not happening. And so the issue is being able to go back and find out who are these people paying rent to or purchased from, which Bahamian, and addressing the issue with these people as to the violation, which it obviously will be, of crown land. That's what has to happen. And that's where I think the investigation right now is at, is finding, because when you go and talk to them, they'll tell you, oh, I pay so-and-so. I'll say this much, you'll be surprised the names they're calling. You'll be very surprised the names that they're calling. Very surprised, that's all I'll say. And so that's what the issue is, trying to get to the root of people who are perpetrating this. And that's why I think it's so important people understand the full story. It's not this notion of, oh, illegals are squatting on our land. It's not this notion of, oh, these people just building these towns and shanty towns. No. At the root of the problem are Bahamians who either own the private land or if it's crown land, have been granted access to the crown land for development, and they're making money off of it by renting it to people who are putting up structures. And that's a part of the story that people aren't telling, but that's the reality of what exists. You're welcome. Any other questions?
One question, is that update
Just full of questions today, BJ. Go ahead.
Is there an update with the food, the audit into the food task force?
Progress has been made, and in very short order, you will have some information.
How short is short?
Soon.
Like next week, Monday?
It's going to be a good month of May. It'll be a good month of May.
Very good.
All right, so having said all of that, let's move now to our section where we highlight our Bahamian food businesses making a difference every day. This week we have two businesses, Wings and Things, Dimitri Johnson and Bernadette Russell, and then Bertha Boy's Coconuts, Brenton Saunders. So I'm going to invite Wings and Things to come and talk about their product, and then Brenton will come and talk about the coconut water, which I think about now all of us are going to need a drink of.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dimitri Johnson, co-owner of BR Wings and Things, and right next to me is our founder, Bernadette Russell.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, good everyone. Now, BR Wings and Things, its name in itself tells its own story. BR Wings and Things is not only known for selling wings, but it also sells a variety of different materials, such as breakfast as in sausage and grits, stew fish, lunch as in gourmet burgers, and we even sell Margaret fish. We even sell Margaret fish.
Yeah, we do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have an array of breakfast stuff. We have an array of specialty wings. We have guava wings.
Spicy guava.
Buffalo.
Barbecue, spicy barbecue,
Right.
even lemon pepper.
Even lemon pepper.
Now, we believe that there is a very distinct flavor because there's a lot of businesses that actually sells wings. But what makes us so distinct is there is a special taste in each different flavor.
Yes.
And we're sure that as each and everyone tastes, at least if you eat chicken, at least if everyone tastes the wings, you'll be sure to taste something that's different and distinct. Now, I'd just like to say that the buffalo is extremely spicy, so take that with caution. Just take that with caution, indeed.
That's real buffalo.
Indeed. Our business is located opposite Anatole Rogers on Faith Avenue. And we believe that living in this country, the Bahamas, as a business owner, is not an easy feat. There's a lot of people that is actually discouraged that has a lot of business ideas and don't tend to go out there and do what they want to do. But I'd just like to encourage everyone who has a business or who is even a bit discouraged to go out there, because we did not expect to be here today, but we are here as a business owner. BR Wings and Things.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes, the business was birthed because, he's the chef, actually. He's the chef. He is very modest, but at first, he had like minimal cooking
At first, I couldn't
skills.
cook.
You couldn't cook.
I couldn't cook at all. And the opportunity came, and I took the opportunity and I started. It was not a great start, but I eventually developed some skills, and by the grace of God, I learned how to cook.
Yes.
And
if we are lacking in skills, we can develop something at least if we try. I encourage everyone, if you have an idea, to try it out, and you'll be sure that you'll see some fruition in your abilities. So we are grateful for being here today as PR Wings and Things take the stand so that everyone can know our name in the Bahamas. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for the opportunity of being here today. My name is Brent Saunders, and I'm the owner and operator of Bertha Boys Coconuts. We've been in operation now for the past 3 years, and I've named the company after my mother who's passed, Reverend Bertha Saunders. When I first started this business, I started on Saunders Beach just before the pandemic and everything was shut down. I since then moved to my own property where we're located now on Fire Trail Road and Birch Pine Close, one corner west of McKinney Drive. Bertha Boys is known for its high standards, qualities, and sanitary practices. We offer the best coconut water and jelly bags on the island. We will soon be introducing our coconut salad, which will be delicious. One of our signature things that we are famous for is we use farmed coconuts, not coconuts from the wild. We also are on schedule to move part of our operations excuse me, to our bottling facility, where we will be bottling from there and then just transferring to our outlet. We're also going to be opening up a new outlet to meet the heavy demands that is demands out there for our products. If you want, you can stop by to pick up an order, or you can call in and place an order for pickup or for delivery. We also do accept credit and debit cards. We also do bank transfers also. And you can find us on Facebook and also on Instagram. Our telephone contacts are 698-5011 or 448-6571. Once again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity of being here today and look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. So it's been exciting, some coconut water and some wings today. It'll be exciting for all of our guests here today. That concludes our press briefing for this week. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Prime Minister's office, press office. We're happy to assist you with any questions, concerns, or comments. Have a great afternoon, everyone.